So you were talking about, having to make that initial change. And I think one of the questions people will ask, they certainly ask me all the time, is what about breakfast? So, what meal did you find the hardest to change, and what did you do and how did you change it?
Good question. My diet as a whole evolved very gradually. There are some people who like to dive into something like this cold turkey. They have a fridge and pantry kitchen clear out, grab everything that they now recognize as terrible and they just toss it. I didn't do that. I'm mindful of living on a budget and not wanting to put anything to waste or anything like that. But what I did instead was I recognized that, okay, my house is full of things that I need to stop eating. So what I did was I stopped buying those things, but I still, ate what was left and just ran them out, say goodbye to each of my these old loves one by one, a little ceremony in my head. And what they would also do is it would give me the time to learn more about what sorts of things I can be having in their place. I'm wandering down, supermarket aisles that I've never been down before. I'm looking at food labels and everything. Understanding and reading food labels was a major thing for me. That's what allowed me to take low carb really, really literally. A carb limit on the label, and anything that I see on there that's above my limit just goes straight back on the shelf. And what I found over time is just lead to, okay, lots of meat and veg. The dinners, therefore, were probably the first thing to change. At about the same time, the lunches at that time, I was going to a buffet cafeteria near to where I work. And I would still be able to go there, but as I was learning, I was understanding, okay, I need to avoid things like the rice, for example. If there's it's Indian day or whatever, well, I can have the curry and just some salad without the rice instead. So the dinners weren't too far behind, or the lunches weren't too far behind the dinners, I should say. Breakfast would probably have been the biggest challenge, because by far and away the thing that stood out to me as an option going by the numbers for breakfast was eggs. But eggs historically were things that I didn't actually like all that much. I'm not into bacon or eggs historically at all. That'll shock some people. What? You don't like bacon? I'm learning to tolerate it a little bit now, but it's not high on my list of meats to choose from. But anyway, so probably the breakfast, and particularly because the one option that loomed large for me in the breakfast department was going to be eggs. So how can I overcome my historic dislike? It wasn't any bias against eggs. I just didn't like the taste of them. So how can I find a way to enjoy these sorts of foods that by the numbers are appearing to be perfectly good for me, but in ways that I can actually enjoy them as well. And what I eventually found was you can grate enough cheese into them until they don't taste like egg anymore and more like cheese. It's not quite that extreme anymore, but you phase your way into it. I love cheese. Eggs, not so much, but you can scramble them, make some cheesy scrambled eggs, or do an omelette, and you can, if you have an omelette, you can fill them with various meats and other things as well. I like a bit of tuna or whatever on my omelettes, for example. You figure things out as you go, but for me, yeah, the breakfast was probably the hardest one. And I guess sort of flowing on from that, it was one of the easiest meals to give up once I realized, this is working so well. I'm not so hungry in the mornings anymore. Well, why have my eggs? I'll have my eggs later in the day, in another form instead.